back when O4 Mini dropped and I made the bold claim that OpenAI suddenly seemed to care about developers and was starting to wage war against all the other model companies? Well, it's gone a heck of a lot further than I ever would have expected. Today, OpenAI dropped yet another new product for us as devs. And it's not just a product, it's a model. It's a specific model for us to use for the work that we do every day. And since OpenAI cares a lot about developers, they took the time to reach out to me and a handful of other developers to give it a quick shot a few days ahead of launch so we could see what it's good at, bad at, and more. And man, have I had a lot of fun playing with it. Can't wait to show you guys all the things that it does well, but more importantly, all the things it does wrong. But first, we need to know what this is. As I said before, it is a new model, and obviously that means it needs a new name, which is why I'm super excited to reveal Codex. Guys, really? Again? We're on 10 codexes now. We have the Copilot model from 2023. We have the CLI. We have the web interface. We have the extension. We now have, oh God, guys, you can come up with names. It's not that hard. Just ask GPT-5. Look at that. You got some free names. I'm using your service. Just name it anything else next time, please. That said, the numbers are looking really, really good. On their code refactoring tests, it's getting way better numbers. And on SWE Bench, it's performing meaningfully better too. Not quite as big a gap, but the numbers are really good. But that's not where this gets interesting. The model behaves fundamentally differently. And while it's not available on API yet, it should be soon. The thing that's really cool here is how deeply tied this model is to the tools that we use it with. Specifically, the Codex CLI and the Codex web interface, and also the Codex extension. Thanks for making this so easy for me, OpenAI. I cannot wait to show you guys all the cool things and all the broken things about this new model. But first, since OpenAI did not pay me, we do have bills to cover. Quick word from today's sponsor, and then we'll dive right in. There's one technology that is more inevitable than anything else in all of software. And no, it's not AI. Let's be real, it's JavaScript. There is no escaping it. No matter how good our HTML tooling gets, you will always need the ability to run some real JavaScript on real web pages, especially if you're building AI agents that are browsing the web for you to get information. And that's why today's sponsor is so helpful. Browserbase is the best way to set up a browser in the cloud. If you need an agent to access a website, or you just need to go get a screenshot of some inventory somewhere. If you need to control a browser with code, your options are Suffer or Browserbase. And you should probably not pick Suffering anymore. Tons of other companies have made the move already, like Perplexity and Vercel. Yes, really. You would expect a company like Vercel to have all of these things handled, and to an extent they do. But when they wanted to introduce the ability for tools like V0 to go hunt across the web to find specific things, their existing tooling just wasn't there for it. So they made the move to Browserbase, and they have been very, very happy. In particular, the tools that existed were not reliable enough. The CDN challenges were blocking them from accessing various things. The quality of the data was absolute garbage, and the limited parallelization that they would have problems with was insane. Because each of these instances needs a real processor on a real computer doing real browsing. You're curious how simple it is? Here you go. They already set up Playwright on this browser window. So this is all happening in the browser. We have window.playwright.chromium.connect over CDP to the connection string, which is something you just get from their dashboard and copy paste. And now we have an actual context for the browser, and we have a page that we can do things to. Page.goto URL. Now you're browsing the web. AI already knows how to use Puppeteer, but does your infra have a good, reliable way for it to do that? It probably doesn't, because you're not using Browserbase yet. Thankfully, that's an easy thing to fix. Check them out today at soydev.link/browserbase. So as I mentioned before, these two benchmarks showed some pretty cool numbers, but that's not what I'm most excited about. If you know what I've been complaining about with GPT-5, other than the fact that it was broken in half the surface areas that we use to interface with it, the thing I've been most annoyed about by far is how slow and token hungry the model tends to be for developer tasks. And that seems to be one of the square, pointed focuses of this change. So when I think about the tasks that I give to different LLMs, I think a lot about how hard is this task to solve? How many tokens does it need? How complex is the problem? Does it need internet access? Does it need all these different things? And what I've found is that for different tasks, there's quite a bit of variety. If I'm asking a model a question, and we have a spectrum where on the left here, it's the simplest, and on the right here, it is the most complex, so the most tokens. I'll just say most tokens. I'll change simplest to least tokens. If I ask a model something like, count to 10. Most models are going to not use too many tokens for a task like this. But if you ask it for something more complex, like to write code in 15 different languages or to count the number of R's in the word strawberry, it's going to take a good bit more tokens. You'll end up somewhere over here instead. But if we think about the range of how many output tokens are necessary for these tasks, something like this is going to be, frankly, 10 tokens because it's counting to 10 and each number will probably be one token. But something more complex like counting letters, or actually though, like writing code in a chat interface, can get as high as something like 100,000 tokens. And while this range seems pretty big, the range gets a hell of a lot bigger for code tasks, where some code tasks might only need like 100 tokens, and some other code tasks, much bigger ones, might need 1,000,000 tokens. And while this might seem like an exaggeration, I really wish it was, just my early playing around was able to get up to 628K tokens used. And I've managed to break 1,000,000 many a time doing one-off playing around code tasks in the past. Since I currently can't really code much, I've been doing a bit more vibe coding lately, and this has been very fun for me to play with because of these new characteristics. One of the things I've been most frustrated with most of the AI coding tools is that they are slow. I am a very fast typer. I go like 160 to 170 word per minute when I have both of my hands functioning properly. I have not had that since my surgery, and I miss it dearly. I can't even press the space bar with my left hand right now. I can barely press Command, Option, and Control. I can't even copy paste my way through stuff right now. It's been rough. So I decided to give this a spin as a true vibe coder would, trying my best to avoid reading code. And I did really good for a bit. We'll go over the project in a second, but I do want to show the thing that brought me here, which is the range of how many tokens are being used. When I was using other models like GPT-5 in standard high configuration, or if I was using models like Claude or Gemini 2.5 Pro, I found that the minimum number of tokens for a task was still pretty high. And even if the models were fast, they still felt slow because they were generating so many tokens to complete basic work. I have a bunch of videos where I talk about this. In particular, the video about the pricing changes in Cursor went really in depth on this and all the things that made it tough. But that's what makes these changes fun, because Codex is trying specifically to handle the small tasks with small amounts of tokens and the big tasks with big amounts of tokens. On OpenAI employee traffic, we see that for the bottom 10% of user turns sorted by model-generated tokens, so they're sorting these tasks that were given by employees to the model by how many tokens each task used, GPT-5 Codex uses 93.7% fewer tokens than GPT-5 did. So on these simple tasks, it uses almost a 20th as many tokens. That's an insane drop. But for the top 10%, it can actually use significantly more, spending twice as long reasoning, editing, and testing code, as well as iterating in general. That's really cool to see. The gap in between these numbers is significant, and the results speak for themselves. So I'm going to run the same prompt twice, once with Codex using standard GPT-5 and once with Codex not using GPT-5. Of course, we're doing the classic image studio. So I will send this here, and separately, I'm going to spin this up with the new GPT-5 Codex version. The thing I'm particularly curious about is how many tokens does it use for this task? This task should be, in quotes, relatively simple because it's just styling the page to look good and make a mock application. I always was kind of concerned at how many tokens would be used when I did this with GPT-5. But right now, even though I started GPT-5 one earlier, it's used fewer tokens than the GPT-5 Codex version. Interesting to think this might be one of the complex tasks. While those are running, I'll show you guys the much deeper testing I've personally been doing. So when I first tried building this project, I got a decent looking UI out of it. It's fine at that. It was different from usual. I can go back and show it in a bit, not that important. But then I asked it to actually implement the service because I'd tried that before and had varying luck. This time I told it to use convex and fal, and it got decently far. It did run into some problems though. It tried too hard to use Next.js, and more importantly, it imported everything from convex/schema, which was weird. I don't know if this is a thing that Convex used to do, but it's definitely not a thing they do now. It has to be convex/server, so I had to go make this change myself. After I made that change, it built and could deploy on Convex, but code wouldn't actually run because of errors with how it was configuring between the client in server actions, as well as within the web interface, as well as within Convex, and trying to build a complex relationship between those that wasn't necessary. So I told it up front, you did this wrong, try again. But this time I paid attention to what it was doing. I did give it search access, which I didn't realize until recently. You have to do with a command line argument. You have to say --search for it to have the ability to search the web when you use Codex, the CLI. So when I did that, it was able to search. And what I found is that it kind of sucks really hard at search. Let me show you guys some of the queries that it made. Here we go. Search for fal client import fal from fal.ai/client subscribe example. This was because it had an error with how it was importing and configuring fal initially. It just did it entirely wrong, even though you don't need to because I already had the environment variable set up properly. So that was quite annoying. Here, it searched for Convex.js setup guide 2025 official documentation. That was a good search, but that only happened because I said, this is not the correct way to use Convex. Try again. Follow the official Next.js setup guide. I'm more and more seeing the value in templates. I even went full vibe code here and just pasted in errors and told it to try and fix them. And it didn't. Okay, here's what I was looking for. This pile of just absolute junk searches. FalAI/FluxPro/V1.1 Ultra API example, file.subscribe, prompt, aspect ratio, guidance scale. I did not ask for any of this shit. I do not know why it was going this hard here. Also, convex react, use query context provider, example, 2025. It sucks at search. I am amused at how bad it is at search. It's kind of annoying. Cool. These both finished. This version used 23.6K tokens, and this was the GPT-5 standard. I didn't even have it on high. I just had it on standard. And then this was GPT-5 Codex, which was 27.8. I just realized I should have done a test on high. I'll test that in a minute. Let me just run dev for these and see how they look. And here we go. This is the version that GPT-5 Medium made. And here's the version that GPT-5 Codex made. Normally, I wouldn't read too much into the UI differences here, but a lot of the things that are different have been consistent through various runs now. It does definitely behave differently with UI. It still looks good, but I've noticed more of these types of errors where like things are clipping into each other, where you have these weird layers in the UI. Just bugs that I didn't see as much of when I was using standard GPT-5. Not sure what that is. Hopefully it'll be fixed. But that does kind of break my heart a little bit, because one of the things I loved about GPT-5 was how good it was at UI. It'd be kind of annoying if we have to switch back to standard GPT-5 for UI and then go to GPT-5 Codex for other things. To be determined. Here's the version I made when I was actually building a working demo using all of this, and it took a few renditions to get the UI in a state where I didn't hate it. I'll show you what it looked like when I first started quick. Here we are. This is what it looked like when I first spun it up. Way too big of an area up top here. This looks okay. Too much text. I don't know what it's doing there. Where things fall apart is near the bottom here. This is a mess. I don't know what happened. I really don't. This is not the GPT-5 I know and love. As I said, when I told it to design in a different direction, it was able to handle it fine. Even the worst things I generated from Codex look better than the best things I could generate from Claude when it comes to from scratch UI stuff. All of that said, I still recommend you just go grab a screenshot of something that looks like what you want and use that as the starting point. This is more meant to demonstrate the native behavior for UI that these models have. As I was mentioning before, though, was not super impressed initially when I told it to just kind of go off and work on things. I know that none of these tools can just invent engineering for you. Like, you need to guide them. They're kind of like a coworker. In fact, that's how this was pitched to me by OpenAI. Is they really wanted this new model to feel like a good coworker that might not know everything about the code base yet or exactly how to work, but could be instructed to go do a thing and work alongside you with that thing. Definitely felt that a lot more than with the other models I've played with, but it still can commit really hard to things that are incorrect. I'm also just really unimpressed with the search in Codex, not because Codex's search itself is bad, but because Codex, the model, is bad at doing search with the CLI. Also, there's so many little UX things that are still screwed up. Like when I was working on setting this up earlier, the way Agent Internet Access works was interesting. I am thankful they put this call out here. Enabling internet access exposes your environment to security risks. Yeah, real thing. But the fact that I have to manually turn on internet access, switch this to all, and there isn't a process where it requests things when it needs it instead of doing it this way, not great. And even then, like the whole process for creating an environment, it's a bit much. It's kind of slow and tedious. But now that I've done this, I should be able to go in here and change where this goes. Oh, it doesn't auto-update here. I have to refresh. That's not even enough. I have to reload the window, and hopefully now when I go to the Codex tab in my editor, I will see the environment that I just made. Interesting that this is under, oh no, I see what they're doing here. This is awful UI. ping.gg/t3chat, hover over, and now it gives me other options here. It's not clear that this is to select a different environment. This looks like they are within ping.gg/t3chat, which they're not. Click here, these local changes. No, I want to get back on main. It also used NPM, which I'm annoyed with. It should be able to figure that out, that I don't use that, but it didn't even ask. It just kind of went with the thing that I would consider wrong. Also, this use local changes thing breaks so much of the UI. Make sure you switch over to main, even though my main branch is the same as main there for local changes. There's just a lot of little UX things they have to figure out. They're admittedly annoying. It means I just use the CLI most of the time or the web interface. I don't use the extension much for these reasons. So I'm going to tell it to add the Gemini image models. Add the Gemini image models for editing and generating images through FAL. And now I've spun up a cloud instance that is taking advantage of the same new model, same CLI. They're trying really hard to standardize the Codex system and interface across the different platforms. And they're also supposedly planning on putting out an SDK, which could be really cool. It would mean that anyone could spin up their own Codex-like tool in the cloud. It doesn't really seem like they want to win this by making something no one else can use. It seems quite like the opposite. They want their models and their protocols to power how we do agentic coding, which is why they're open sourcing pretty much everything around it. It is kind of crazy if you think about it, the amount of money and time being spent on the Codex CLI and how that is powering so many other things. And they just give it out for free, MIT licensed on their GitHub. Actually, I might be wrong about the license. I think they were more generous than that. I'm correct. It was Apache 2.0. That's kind of nuts for them to do something like that. And they're literally merging things as we speak 2 minutes ago. And I'm recording this at 9 p.m. on a Sunday. So that says a lot about how hard these guys are shipping. It feels a lot more like a small startup than it feels like this giant evil mega corporation. I know that's not the vibe a lot of you guys have. I understand. But I insist, these guys have been awesome to work with. And they're totally okay with the fact that I'm sitting here half roasting them as I go through all of this. Almost forgot to mention, big part of why they're probably going the open source angle here is that weird agreement they have with Microsoft, the one where, they get all of the IP until AGI is reached. I've always found that to be a weird agreement, and in particular here, it hurts, similar to how it hurt in the Windsurf acquisition, where if they don't open source this, Microsoft still gets access to all of this and can do whatever they want with it. But by open sourcing it, everyone else gets access to it too. So could hypothetically be a workaround with that deal. Can't say for sure. This is pure speculation. Just a possibility I think is worth considering is all. So let's see how this does in the cloud. If I click this, will it bring me to this task? It will. It will. We'll see how that handles things. In particular, it got really confused with the setup for Convex, in particular the environment variable management stuff, because you don't have to manage environment variables with Convex. You just run the dev command and it will tell you to sign in and you're good. I have no idea how it's going to handle that in the cloud. We will see momentarily. Apparently something opened up the ChatGPT app when I did these things. That's kind of silly and annoying. Anyways, more on the tokenization stuff. Apparently they were comparing medium between 5 and 5 codecs. You might think that's suspicious. I don't, because I personally don't use high almost ever. So 5 medium on the 10th percentile is 93.7% fewer tokens, but on the 90th percentile, it is over double the number of tokens. I really like this. The fact that it is so flexible based on the different types of tasks we do, very good sign. It's been trained specifically for conducting code reviews and finding critical flaws. When reviewing, it navigates your code base, reasons through dependencies, and it runs your code and tests in order to validate correctness. They did talk a lot about the code review side of things in the call that I did with them. They were really excited about the fact that it isn't just taking your code and looking at the diffs. It's actually running the code in a container in the cloud to test it and find bugs. Potentially really, really powerful. I'm still using CodeRabbit if I'm being honest with you guys, but this is something that I would actually consider using. It's a good pitch, seems cool, have not evaluated it at all yet. They tested on actual open source repos. For each commit, experienced software engineers evaluated review comments for correctness and importance. We find the comments by GPT-5 Codex are less likely to be incorrect or unimportant, reserving more user attention for critical issues. Good. I will say that through most of the AI code review tools I've used, they like to spit out nonsense and things that aren't that valuable. I am thankful that both CodeRabbit and now hopefully GPT-5 Codex will make that better. And also the tools that aren't as reliable can use GPT-5 Codex, and fingers crossed, they'll also have better reviews. Fewer comments per PR, more high impact comments, fewer incorrect comments, about 1/3 as many incorrect comments. Very good sign. It also is much better at mobile sites. Very fun. You can look at images or screenshots you provide as input, visually inspect progress, and display screenshots of its work to you. Woo! That's really, really cool. I have not played with that just yet, but the fact that the new Codex web interface is capable of giving you screenshots of the work as it's going, very good sign. I like this a lot. They rebuilt the Codex CLI to be more agentic. Should have always been. You can now attach and share images. I do not like sharing images in my terminal. I don't know why people like this, but you do you. Do it right in the CLI. Super cool. Now has to-do lists. I've noticed it using the to-do list a lot more. Search being something you have to do via commands and arguments when you launch is still annoying. I'm sure they'll change that in the near future. Oh, fun, quick tangent on the pricing side. When they set me up for using this, they used my company account, which doesn't have a subscription. I still use T3 Chat, by the way. But as such, my $200 a month subscription wasn't working. So I went and signed up for the $20 tier on my company account. Right as I started prompting, they went and fixed it and put it on the right account. But I was going pretty hard using the $20 tier and wasn't able to hit any limits. I'm sure you will with heavy enough usage over long amounts of time, but it does seem like the Codex plans on the $20 and $200 tiers of OpenAI's ChatGPT plans are actually quite generous, which hurts because this is yet another reason to not use T3 Chat. That said, if you want a better chat interface, use code Codex to get your first month for $1 on T3 Chat, and every other month will be $8. Anyways, let's see how that cloud interface is doing. Oh, nothing. Yeah. This has been my experience with the cloud interface. It's just kind of half broken. Oh. Looks like it made changes. Fal AI, Gemini Flash Edit. I don't think those are the names of those models. Yeah, it's actually Fal AI / Gemini 2.5 Flash Image / Edit. So it didn't search, it didn't check the web, it just hallucinated the names of those models. I still think the cloud side is a bit bunk, if I'm going to be honest with you guys. I haven't had a good experience with any of the cloud background agent things just yet, but the amount of problems that this seems to be running into just doing basic checks for things, rip-grepping, looking for files and names of things. I told it to add the models. It means they're not there. It should just be going to the web and finding them, not rip-grepping through node modules. That's a choice. Yeah, this is where my skepticism comes in. I'm recording this part after I finished filming earlier because I want to mention a specific thing. I have had the starting Codex piece on my phone for the past hour and a half, even though, according to this, it's done and is ready to go open a PR. Their live notification system is entirely broken. It has been since it started. It seems really cool. It doesn't work at all. And if I can find an easy way to turn it off, I'm absolutely going to, because at this point in time, it does not function. And that's kind of my problem with the ecosystem. It just feels like the pieces are getting there, but the puzzle isn't yet. And all the parts just kind of break once you start using them more together. And that cohesion is so important to do something like this. And it's not there yet. I find that the GPT-5 models are still the best experience I've had doing agentic code, but I still find that the Codex tool set, in particular the web interface and the extension in my editor, are within the more clunky options. I'd personally still take things like OpenCode, Kilo Code, and all these other agentic tools with GPT-5 over the Codex ecosystem. Even though the CLI is improving meaningfully, I'm not seeing those improvements on the web version, and I'm definitely not seeing them in the editor VS Code extension. This is the problem when you use one name for everything, though. Now, if people hear the name Codex and they go to try it, whichever version they're trying, be it the editor version, the web version, the CLI version, or just the model directly, is going to be how they judge it. And if I'm using the CLI and the model, and you're using the web interface and the extension, we're going to have really different experiences, and that's going to result in us having a different vibe. I've already been through this with OpenAI, as you guys probably remember with the GPT-5 launch, where they don't label things correctly, they make it too hard to know what you are and aren't getting, and then they screw up the auto router, and now everyone thinks I'm insane. Thankfully, we've all now seen the light and know that GPT-5 is really good at code, but Codex version 12 is not going to help a whole lot. So that's my feedback. I'm sorry that you had to learn this way, OpenAI. I'm not sending this video to them ahead of time to approve, and hopefully I won't get in trouble for that. You need to fix your web interface. You need to fix the extension. You need to name the model something else or name these other surfaces something else because people are going to be confused and frustrated. And while I appreciate the goal of unifying everything, because it should hopefully long-term reduce confusion, right now it's just adding more. And the fact that I've had as jank an experience with the web version and the background agents that I have is enough of a reason to rethink how these are branded going forward. That all said, a new model that is better at code, that will reason more when it should and reason less when it shouldn't, all sounds really good. And from my brief playing, I've had a pretty good experience overall. I'm curious what you guys think, though. Have you had a chance to play with the new Codex model yet? What do you think? How has it been? Let me know in the comments. And until next time, peace, nerds.